Good morning, everybody, and a happy Wednesday morning to you. Lots of news. Let's jump in and get busy, shall we? Let's go. We're going to start off today with King Charles, who marked the 20th anniversary of the 2005 London Transit bombings, which, by the way, was the deadliest attack on the British capital since World War II. 52 people were killed. More than 770 people were wounded, unbelievable numbers. There were 4 British men inspired by Al-Qaeda, and they basically blew themselves up on 3 separate subway trains and a bus during a morning rush hour, July 7th of 2005. These were the very first suicide bombings on European soil, and 2 weeks later, 4 other bombers attempted a similar attack, but their devices failed to explode and nobody was hurt. A national service of commemoration was then held at St. Paul's Cathedral on July 7th. Duchess Sophie and her husband Prince Edward were attending that in the stead of King Charles. It was a very somber event, and they sat in the front row. Now, there were a lot of people there showing up that some of them I really didn't recognize until they were getting out of their cars. This was a big event, so let me give you some of the names of people who were seen arriving. First off, you had former Prime Minister Theresa May. You have the current Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. These were the people that were spotted going in. Sophie and Edward walked in. They walked up to the front row where they were joined by the politicians and the other people whose names I just read out, as well as some others. And there was a daughter of a woman who died near King's Crossing. She apparently broke down as the name was read. Saba Edwards and Thelma Stober read the names of those who died in the attacks while the organ played in the background. Wow. 52,000 white petals then fell from the ceiling of the dome. Miss Edwards was reading the names, and when she got to her mother's name, she began to cry, and so Miss Stober took over. After that, there was a minute of silence, and of course, at the end of the event, Edward and Sophie were seen leaving with some other dignitaries who I didn't name earlier, including Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, Health Secretary Wes Streeting, former Home Secretary Charles Clarke, Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, and former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair, as well as Sir Khan, who, by the way, also laid a wreath at the Hyde Park monument, which we're getting to, and a big thank you to Remy Sauce for showing us what Sophie was wearing. Now, while that was going on, Prince William was in Hyde Park. Apparently, there is a permanent memorial there to 52 people who were killed in the attacks. And he was there where he joined survivors of the bombings and families of the victims for a service at the memorial gates, again, to mark the 20th anniversary of the tragedy. His appearance there was not announced ahead of time, and he was one of the last of the 500 guests to take a seat. I'm guessing they did that because they wanted Harry and Meghan to not try to overshadow this event. And shockingly enough, it does appear, I'm just throwing this out as an FYI, that Harry didn't even put out a statement about what happened, Mr. Ex-Soldier. Anyway, due to the delay in proceedings, he was seen chatting with Thelma Stober, one of these survivors, and Gerald Oppenheimer, who's chairman of the London Bombing Relief Charitable Fund. Let me just say I loved Miss Stober's outfit, and of course I don't know if this took place before or after the St. Paul's Cathedral, because, she's one of the ones that was reading out the names. Anyway, after that event, they all walked over to the monument, which, by the way, is comprised of 52 steel pillars that represent each of the victims. And they went to look at the names of the loved ones that were engraved on the memorial alongside the time and the date of death. I had no idea this memorial even existed. Now, when they got there, there were already floral tributes that had been put there by the Prime Minister and the Mayor of London and other officials earlier on in the day. It was also reported that the wreaths were laid at 8:50 a.m. to coincide with the moment that the first bomb went off. And apparently this whole service started 30 minutes late because there were long queues at the security gates. Oh, amazing. Anyway, William walked up, he put down his beautiful flowers, and then they stood for a minute of silence. Now, I don't have pictures of it, but at the conclusion of this, Prince William joined the survivors and their families for a private reception at a tea tent that was apparently set up about 100 yards away from the memorial. I'm going to say that this event took place after the cathedral because apparently Keir Starmer and Sir Khan laid wreaths in Hyde Park at 8:50, and I don't think that the other event started until after that. So that's the order of the events that I believe they took. Tributes like this were going on all over. At 8:49 in the morning, the commander of the London police went to a underground station and laid a wreath on behalf of the City of London Police. Very, very powerful pictures. All right, moving on, we have Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. She was at day 8 of Wimbledon tennis at the All England Lawn Tennis Club on July 7th. Wow, lots of emotion in that face. She must really have been getting into it. Now, one of the people that she greeted when she got there was King Frederick of Denmark. He was also there watching. I've heard about him before. He's really, really a nice guy, they say. Now, also spotted arriving were Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales' parents, Carol and Mike Middleton. I've always liked her parents. They seem such down-to-earth, nice people who are self-made. I love that. And, of course, a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what Carol Middleton was wearing at the event. Now, when she showed up, apparently she's a really good relationship with a lot of members of the royal family because she was greeted by the Duchess of Gloucester. They seem to be very familiar with each other. I love that. So her parents then sat down to watch tennis, and the Duchess of Gloucester sat down next to Sophie to watch. A big thank you, as usual, to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what Sophie was wearing at the tennis match. Let's move on now to Princess Anne. She and her husband, Sir Tim Lawrence, have arrived in Belgium. There are going to be commemorations there for the reopening of I think it's pronounced Menin Gate Memorial. On this memorial is the names of more than 54,000 Commonwealth soldiers who are missing from the war. Well, one of the first things that Anne and her fabulous husband did was go to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission's Visitor Center to take a look around at all the things that were there. FYI, the woman that you saw greet them and that you see speaking with them as they're viewing the memorial was Princess Claire of Belgium, sister-in-law of King Philippe of the Belgians. For those of you who don't know, the Menin Gate is one of the most iconic First World War memorials, and it has stood there since 1927, they're saying, as a symbol of sacrifice, memory, and international solidarity. It's amazing. None of these people has a grave. It's terrible. So to commemorate the reopening of this gate, the two of them laid wreaths. And Anne laid her wreath in her capacity as the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. She's head of that. So beautiful wreaths that were laid on behalf of the two of them. The area has beautiful architecture. Now, after that, Princess Anne delivered a speech, and in her speech, she talked about how the gate stood as more than stone and inscription. It's a threshold between past and present. They then went on to a reception where she and her husband both spoke to several interesting people. And of course, at some point during the day, Anne and the Princess Claire unveiled a beautiful plaque. And after that, Princess Anne went to pay respects to the gravestone of Prince Maurice of Battenberg in the town cemetery. Maurice was one of the grandsons of Queen Victoria. He was killed in action October of 1914. Wow, beautiful stone. Now, while all this was going on, the king was very busy. First, he received the Prime Minister of New Guinea, the Honorable James, I hope I'm saying this right, Marape at Highgrove. And also during Royal Week, King Charles and Queen Camilla viewed a painting by Hugh Buchanan of the presentation of the Royal Honours of Scotland, and they were there with Lord Lyon, and the viewing was held in the Long Gallery of the Palace of Holyrood House. And I told you yesterday, I just wanted to touch on this about a prank that was played on Harry, but you guys may not remember, there was another prank, a radio host who made a prank call to the hospital that was caring for Catherine in 2012. The nurse who answered the phone was so humiliated, she actually unalived herself after releasing private medical information on Catherine. Well, the man who made the prank call is suing his boss, saying that they didn't support him enough after the fallout, which resulted in the death of the nurse. I mean, are you kidding me? Point is, not all pranks are funny. This guy should have lost. He lost his job, and he should have. Yeah. All right, let's move on. All right, before we move on, I have to touch on the Prince Andrew stuff. It's come out that he will not be charged in relation to anything that Epstein did. They're coming out, the Department of Justice has come out and said, number one, Epstein did not have a client list, and that Prince Andrew is in the clear. In other words, there's no evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. There's no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. And there was no evidence of a client list, okay? So I feel like that's important to say. Now, I want to say something else. I talked about Andrew the other day, and people said, oh, he's scum. He's this, he's that. Let me just say, I do think that his decision to be friends with Epstein was poor. But let's talk about Virginia Giuffre for just a second. First of all, come to find out, her husband was beating her. They had separated. She was fighting for custody of her children. So she had a lot on her plate. Also, she kept a diary that does not put the husband in a good light. Do not misunderstand. I am not victim shaming. I'm just simply letting you know that at the time of her death, she was having a very, very hard time. Okay? That's not victim shaming. She had a lot going on in her life. Her husband and her had separated. She was fighting for custody of the kids. She was suing all these people. She was going out about her trafficking, what had happened to her when she was younger. We've already discussed that. I'm not sure how all that works. She was 17 years old when that all happened to her. Then she had the car accident where she claimed she was dying in the hospital. Then we come to find out that wasn't true. It was a minor accident. The police weren't even involved in it. Then we found out that her father is claiming she really didn't unalive herself, even though she left a note behind. I think there's just a lot of dynamics that were going on in her life at the end of her life. So besides telling people she was critically injured in an accident, which turned out to be a lie, apparently she's being sued by artist Rena O for falsely stating that Rena was a girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein's and one of his recruiters. So she was probably going to lose all of her money that she got from Andrew because this woman is suing her. Now, the lawsuit isn't over. The money is moving on to the estate. And so she was concerned that she was going to lose all of her wealth for pointing fingers. Another person that she lied about. And let me just remind you again, she accused Alan Dershowitz, saying that she was trafficked to him between 2000 and 2002. He denied the claim, but he decided not to settle with her. They went to court, and she backtracked and said, I now recognize I may have made a mistake in identifying Mr. Dershowitz. So as far as Andrew goes, I think his mother wanted him to settle. He was taking all the attention away from the Platinum Jubilee. The family helped him pay off. Yes, he's a scumbag, but I just don't think he's that guilty. And let's not forget, again, that Virginia claimed she had 4 days to live after an accident that it turned out that was also untrue. The woman has a history of lying. And as I've said before, once I catch you lying, your credibility is gone for me. All right, moving on. Meghan just put this picture up on her as ever. I feel like she's bored with this account and she's just looking for stuff to put up. Boring, beige, same old, same old. All right, let's move on to our Meghan Markle stuff for today. Jessica Mulroney is back in the news. In case you guys just don't remember, she was Meghan Markle's BFF. She was a fashion stylist who worked with a lot of high-profile clients, like the First Lady of Canada. They hit it off. They became fast friends. And for many years, the two of them were side by side for everything. They went on vacation together. They did girls' holidays in Europe. They went to glitzy events. You know, she was involved in Meghan's wedding to Harry. I mean, she was just there center stage. And then something bad happened. A bit of a reminder for you. Influencer Sasha Exeter accused Jessica Mulroney of abusing her white privilege. Some DMs went back and forth on Twitter where Jessica actually sent this woman a DM that said, "I won't be afraid to go to brands and tell them what you're doing to me." And Sasha said, well, that's textbook white privilege. So Jessica invoked Meghan's mixed race background in a comment saying to Sasha that she was sorry. And, you know, as I told you privately, I have lived a very public and personal experience with my closest friend where race was front and center and it was deeply educational. But then she threatened again in a DM to sue the influencer. What was reported then that this gave Meghan the excuse she wanted to cut Jessica Mulroney off, saying that Jess was trying to boost her professional opportunities based off her friendship with Meghan Markle. So right when this all happened, Jessica put out, statements like, "I'm going to tell you this once and for all. Meghan and I are family. She's the kindest friend and she checks on me every day." And then later on, she put up a picture of some flowers that she got from Meghan on her birthday and wrote "luckiest friend ever." But then over the next few years, she put up some cryptic posts about friendships falling apart where people say that had to do with Meghan Markle. But we know that Meghan has a tendency to dump people when things don't go her way. It's always her way or the highway. And how many people has she dumped when you put it all together? So one of the first ones I want to look at is Edward Enninful. They found out, remember, that's her former, Vogue friend. But that friendship went away because he wasn't doing something that she wanted. And what about her poor father who she cut off? I mean, that's just despicable. And besides her father, she's cut off both sides of the family except for Doria. She's cut off the royal family as well. She cut off David and Victoria Beckham, which is a move that I believe she severely regrets. She dumped her ex-boyfriend, Corey, the chef, as soon as she met Harry because she's a social climber. And let me give you a few more examples of that. One of the people she used to hang out with was Violet von Westenholz, but the second she started dating Harry, she stopped speaking to her. Then you had Millie McIntosh, who was a friend of Meghan's, and she said that she was snubbed by Meghan and her last message from her was very abrupt and she stopped speaking to her after she became engaged to Harry. This girl admitted she gave Meghan all of her contacts and showed her the best London hotspots to go to, but then she got dumped as soon as she wasn't needed anymore. That sounds like her. Then we have this Priyanka Chopra girl. Meghan didn't go to her wedding and she wasn't invited to Meghan's baby shower, even though she went to Meghan's wedding. And she follows Jessica on Instagram. You had her childhood friend, Nanaki Pretty, who Meghan has cut off because she basically sided with Trevor after the divorce. And then, of course, you have all of her Suits co-stars who she said were like family. They've all recently admitted that none of them have her contact information. You guys get it. She doesn't keep long-term relationships. Oh my goodness, you guys know what I want. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell, then go down into the description box where you'll find the links to my Twitter, Gettr, Rumble, email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.